Hello and welcome to the Cluster API provider for AWS community meeting. Today is the 17th of March, and I want to let everyone know we are abiding by the CNCF Code of Conduct. Um, in fact, that means please be nice to each other. Um, I ask that folks use the raise hand feature of Zoom, and I will call on you to jump in. I'm going to start with the action items for last week. I can say for mine, I have not gotten to this annotation deprecation. Um, I verified that yes, node role.kubernetes.io/master is indeed deprecated, but I haven't found exactly what version, if any, Kubernetes has removed it from. But we'll probably need to support the control plane version of it regardless. Richard, did you get any further on the AMI build automation?
I didn't, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Yeah, I will get to it, but yeah, I haven't in the last 2 weeks.
Okay. And then I skipped over the PSAs, but quickly, there is a 2.8 release plan for this week. Um, I think some folks are probably going to ask about that here. Um, so yeah, I'm going to get started with the actual agenda. Um, so the first point I'm going to bring up is we had some folks contribute a PR that um, was implementing a proposal that was merged, but there was contention over the implementation. So I want to say for Milan and Mohammed, thank you for putting the proposal up. This proposal I have put up is a different implementation that I've responded to some feedback on. So the original proposal um, basically said to use feature gates, feature flags, I'm sorry, for controlling when the AWS machine and AWS cluster control loops ran. Um, in the PR, we were, I kind of had the objection that feature gates should be used for new features being introduced um, and should have some sort of path to graduation. Uh, One thing that we don't actually have is an official path to graduation for things like EKS and ROSA. Um, so, as a compromise between that and actually um, conforming to the spirit of the proposal that's been merged, I put this PR up. Thank you, Richard, Mohammed, Robin, and Damiano for your reviews on it so far. Um, and yeah, just wanted to highlight that. Um, can open the floor if anyone has any further comment on it. Richard.
Yeah, more it's just I guess, to echo what you said, which was just to say thank you very much to the original implementation. I don't think any way it detracts. I think there was potentially a failure in review and not getting enough eyes on the original proposal, which I think was probably a failure on just not the maintainers. Well, I guess it is the maintainers and other people in the review, just not getting enough eyes on that, and these things coming out way too late. So, but yeah, it was. Just want to say appreciate the effort anyway, from everyone involved.
Okay. Mohammed.
Yeah, thanks, Nolan. So I want to thank you for the effort and yeah, and regards the proposal, so there is one thing so when we introduced this proposal back in the day, there is no machine pool machine introduced yet. But now when I recheck the code again, so I believe it's better when we disable the cluster, disable the machine as well. at once? Because like so when we discussed this like back in the day, we said that we can use cluster with machine pool without machines.
Hmm.
That was, but I believe then Richard we reply like had a comment back that this is not something we want to support. So then and as a machine pool machine introduced, that's mean the user he can use machine pool with machine in AWS clusters, not just EKS or Rosa. So
Gotcha.
disabling cluster and machine should must come together. Like you cannot disable machine and let the cluster work with machine pool. This will not gonna fly, I guess.
Yeah. I did take those proposal. Let's see. Put it. I did update this for yours and Richard's feedback that now they're instead of
Okay, cool then. Yeah, okay.
um, individual controllers, I grouped these into the unmanaged set. So that was just happened like less than a half hour ago. So folks should take another review on that um, and make sure it covers our cases and we've got something that works for everyone. That would be appreciated.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nolan. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the next topic. I think this one's going to be relatively quick because we've got a few other topics. I just wanted to I just wanted to highlight that um, uh, Pankaj, uh, please correct me if I pronounced that incorrectly, but you've been working on the AWS SDK V2 refactor. I have not had a chance to look at this in detail, but I very much appreciate you starting to tackle this because we have a deadline um, of support ending. So
Yeah.
it looks like you're tackling this kind of by AWS feature area. So you're starting with S3 here. Um, yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you. I don't know if you had any further things you wanted to say about this.
No, that's right, Nolan. Thank you, and you pronounced my name correctly, so thank you for that. Uh, so yes, well, the idea is the main challenge of this migration was the identity package, where we fetch in all the credential providers and all, and then the sessions package, where we have sessions for cluster and global session. I'm maybe saying it wrong, but two types of sessions. The main difference with this SDK is the way clients are instantiated. So it requires refactoring from session, starting from session up until the API calls. Some of the API calls might stay same, like they won't change. But yes, the instantiation and the initial bootstrapping is entirely different. That involves logic of the endpoint resolver, which we were having as like a global endpoint resolver for different service endpoints. But now that is client specific. So you cannot do like a global endpoint resolver. So for every client, we have to create an endpoint resolver because as I said, client instantiation is entirely differently. Session itself gets created with the client package, not the main package of AWS. So these are the three things, but most of these things like the identity, the session creation, and service endpoint resolver for S3 is done. So same pattern can be followed with other clients as well. I think we have EC2, EKS, load balancing. Maybe I think so, one more is there, but same pattern can be followed. The challenge for other clients I see is making sure that the API, the interface it has to be created by us first thing. It's not provided by the AWS library itself, so we have to define that interface. So that has to happen for every client, and then on top of it, if we have any additional wrappers around those API calls, we have to make sure they are available for every client. For example, I think for EKS we have a wrapper for describing the node pool. Other than that, I wanted to get opinion from community about how are we planning to handle the validation part, because now validation is handled by the SDK itself. So should we remove our custom logic of validating the inputs, or should we keep it?
Do you have a specific package it is in?
So for let's say we are creating an EKS cluster, managed cluster.
Mm-hmm.
So we validate that input, like if it is valid or not. But SDK handles that efficiently now. So I'm just curious, like if we still want to maintain our custom logic for validating the input structure. And it applies to others as well. I saw it for S3, not S3, but EC2 and load balancing. Whenever we are creating the any resource.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Personally, I'll say we should keep the validation as it is in the webhooks. Trying to make sure that it's exactly the same and there's no edge cases or nuances to that validation that's changed could actually result in a breaking change to us. So I potentially leave the validation in there, then we could slowly work, follow up to remove anything that is unnecessary in the future.
I think the validation is not part of. Let me just check. I might be wrong here, but I think it's part of the webhook or not. Let me just confirm. Okay, so
So, Richard, you're referring to the validation we do on the Kubernetes objects, which
not that one. I think I was referring to the validation going to the AWS SDK. The inputs going to the AWS SDK.
okay. Hmm.
So in each service, for example, if I go to EKS and we go to the cluster.go in that package, in EKS package.
Nope, that's not each service, which is under.
It's under cloud services and EKS.
Why am I not?
Package cloud, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Services and EKS. Cluster.go. And yeah, you can just search for create cluster. That should get us to that validation. I'll find that. I think we can continue this discussion on Slack. I'll
Okay.
give you that link.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can pick it up there.
Okay.
So that's one point. And second is in the middle. So now SDK has something called like middleware logic for inserting custom middlewares for handling different things. For example, we collect metrics and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So that works fine. However, we have a middleware for capturing or recording AWS permissions issues. So do we want to continue doing that? But that's just a logging part of it. So do we want to do that as well? It's in the sessions package.
The sessions package. Actually,
Let me give it the exact path.
Internal. Nope.
Sorry, it's in the clients package, cloud scope, and then clients.co. You can search for record AWS permissions. Yeah, that one. So this is like a middleware for in V1 where we record AWS permissions or print a custom logging message for it.
We probably want to keep the same functionality in that we're admitting the same records. But go ahead,
Mhm.
Richard. You're muted.
That would help. I was going to say exactly the same. So yeah, I agree. We should replicate that functionality.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'll look for that, how that can be done. The only issue I found, or I'm kind of struggling right now, is with the error message. Because now in AWS V2, it's like Smithy API, and then you have to decode that message in a error off and wrap it, and then fetch out the code. So, but there is no clear documentation about what that code looks like in V2, especially for the permissions. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But yeah, as of now, I have kept that logic in the even in the PR as well. It's still there, but I'll make sure we have the correct error codes, the text for them, so that it actually gets recorded instead of just a code block. But yeah, Nolan, in terms of checklists, so I just explained my thought process. So, what do you think about the checklist? Like, what kind of checklist we can think of when we move to, we start with other clients?
Yeah, so I was envisioning breaking it up by the services in
Mm-hmm.
like in package cloud services, using that as a vertical. So whatever services are defined there, update
Mm-hmm.
those and related places. There may be some in scope as well. Um,
Yeah.
so we can probably go through there and make a checklist and possibly separate issues so that we can keep track of
Mm-hmm.
this as like smaller work. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't, I'm curious what other people think. I don't, if we can retain functionality and are not emitting different errors or different messages, I think that this work can be broken up across releases of Kappa. Um, so if we have multiple issues for that, we can just keep that work
Definitely.
rolling, and
Yeah.
not block anything on it.
Got it. I think as we move to other clients like other services, EKS or EC2 or load balancing, they should be smaller than this one because this had the major chunk about identity and
Yeah.
sessions. So that might be smaller ones. But yes, I think service going by services is the nice approach. We'll take that route. As of now, even in this PR, we are still keeping that V1 functionality for other services just to make sure, even if we merge one, nothing breaks in the current setup.
See, there's a chat message. Sorry, I have to open it up. Okay, Alex is stepping away. Is there anything more on this topic?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Nolan. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Alex had to step away. So I'm going to move on to Richard.
Yep. So this is, I guess, following off from a discussion from Slack, and it's something we've discussed on I guess, a fairly regular basis over the years, which is actually coming up with a regular release cadence for Kappa, especially useful for companies, I guess, directly integrate with Cluster API, knowing what the release cycle is going to be. Obviously, there will be exceptions, like when there's breaking changes and things take longer to fix and stuff like that. But I think it would be good to reopen that discussion so that people can have some confidence in when we're going to, fixes and stuff and new features are going to be released. So, yeah, I don't know what people think. Every month doing a minor release. But yeah, open to suggestions, but I think it's probably a good idea.
Okay, since no hands are going up, I'll go ahead and jump in. I, I suspect there's no objection to having regular releases. I think the only debate will be cadence and exactly can we accommodate every few months, every 2 weeks, that kind of thing. I don't know that minor needs to come out every 2 weeks, but like a patch release maybe. Um, I would probably lean towards every 2 to 3 months. I forget exactly what cluster APIs is. I think that's once a quarter, or maybe twice a year. Can't remember.
Can't remember how to raise one. I think Cappy moved to the same cadence of case.
Oh, they're releasing so often. I can't even see 1.8.0 on this page. So, let's see, December th
You can search at the top.
aha. Okay, V1.8.0 was okay. Does not like
Maybe was
stops
refreshing the
apparently.
page, maybe the arguments.
Let's try this. Okay, so 1.9 was December 10th. And 1.8.0 was August 12th. And Richard has a link for me. 4 months. Okay, yeah, and I think that does match Kubernetes. Kubernetes is 3 times a year. Yeah, Julio.
Yeah, I'm just worried in releasing every few months as we're upstream to a lot of products and it might take a lot of time for those changes to reach the product. So if it's completely automated, I guess more often would be better so we don't like block releases or downstream.
More often would be great. I think the issue right now is um, contributor time and the fact that we don't have it fully automated.
That's
I absolutely agree if it like that getting it fully automated would be great. Um, I know for my team, we're not going to have the bandwidth to do that uh, soon, probably later this year, but um, probably not until autumn or something like that. Damiano?
Yeah, I second that. I think up until now we have been able to try and release at least once per each CAPI release. So for CAPI 1.7, we got 2.6, and then for CAPI 1.8, we got 2.7, and then now for CAPI 1.9, we're going to get 2.8. The thing is, we are lagging behind quite significantly. So we are still doing like one release per each CAPI release, but we're lagging behind a lot. And that is because it's more and more painful to try and bump the CAPI dependencies and avoid breaking CI, or at least even getting CI to pass, because CI sometimes in a bad state, and so it's hard to gather whether the bump is actually causing the issue, or CI is, flaky, or CI is broken from something else. So yeah, there are multiple factors that plays into that. But yeah, one thing is we are at least releasing once per CAPI release, but we're lagging behind 2 or 3 months. Like for example, we just saw that CAPI 1.9 was released December 10th, and we're still trying to get a matching Kappa release out. So yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is, if we do release more regularly, I think the hard part is releasing once per each CAPI cycle, because we need to bump CAPI, and that carries, its own problems, as I was mentioning. If we release more often than that, like CAPZ and CAPV are doing, for example, those releases should be easier, because we are not required to do Go bumps. We're not required to do CAPI bumps in all of them. For those, we can just release whatever PRs we merged, and if CI is happy, we should just be able to say, okay, let's do it. The counter to that is, if we release more often, we may need to increase the window of numbers of releases that we maintain, minor releases, I mean, because if we just release, let's say we release, I don't know, once every week, which is, it's probably not how it's gonna be, but let's say we release once per week. By a month, we are already going to be ahead of 4 releases, and if we drop our CI support and backports every 2 releases, then whatever we released 15 days ago is not supported anymore already. So I think deciding how frequently we release plays into how much we support previous releases with backports and with CI. So yeah, that's a couple of things that come to mind that we need to weigh into the conversation.
Richard?
Yeah, just following from what Damiano said, really. I think probably like 4 months makes sense for CAPI, just because the impact of their changes potentially on loads of providers, and you've got to give time for the providers to test the RCs and all of those things. I don't think we necessarily have that type of restriction, and we don't necessarily need to allow that time frame, I guess, to allow the providers to get make the changes. So I think probably 4 months would be a bit too long for us, but 2 months would be, I think, seems reasonable. It's not it's not too often that the burden on the people doing the work, doing the maintainers, and it allows enough time to get changes in and reviews and stuff like that. Would seem reasonable in my head, but I think 4 months would be a bit too long, personally.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
And I go for it.
Yeah, I think 4 months is what we currently have, and we all think is quite a long time to get things out, and people are asking more and more for, changes to be out so then they can use them. So in general, yeah, I also agree. Midway from like once every week to once every 4 months, I think every 2 months is good. So one release is bound to be copy bump, and the other is a bit more of a lightweight release where we can just get some things out for folks. That said, we still do patch releases, which we can use to, also sometimes we have used it in the past to just carry out features, which is not ideal because they should only necessarily be for bug fixes and like little changes like that. But yeah, if we move to a more regular minor release cadence, then it patch releases we can actually only use them for patching issues and not for releasing stuff, which is good.
Richard?
Would it be helpful if I just wrote something up just to use as a basis for discussion?
Sure.
So a bit like the CAPI release lifecycle document, but for us, and then use that to discuss the nuances of, hey, we'll do patch releases on this, but only, I mean, literally just as a basis for the discussion, and then we could come to a consensus between us all based on something written down.
Plus one for me.
Yeah.
Thanks for volunteering.
Yeah. And one more thing I'll throw out before moving on, because I think that's a great idea to have the document and have the async discussion and a written consensus. Getting a more frequent release cadence would be easier with more contributors. So definitely invite people to, if you've got the spare time and can help. We do have a role for a release team. It is not as refined as the CAPI team upstream because we found some issues with GitHub permissions the way we have it currently. But all that being said, if folks are willing to put the time in to help do a release, that would be awesome. Yeah, and if you're interested, you can do reviews, propose changes. Just being involved would be super helpful. So I'll put that out there, and then I think we can move to Alex's topic since we're getting close on time. Yeah, so Alex.
Yeah, hey, I opened the PR for adding cluster cost support for EKS clusters, and just please take a look. The more reviews I get, the better. I didn't add managed machine pools at the moment to not make the PR extremely big for review. It's currently only possible with normal machine deployments, but I plan to add a managed machine pools later once we merge this PR.
Yeah, Damiano.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, for contributing and the PR. And sorry we didn't get to review it yet, but we focused on the outstanding things that we had just to unblock the 2.8 release, and then as soon as that's out, I think we can move on to review this. And yeah, if we get to a more regular release cadence, I guess we can get this out quite quickly after we merge it.
Cool. Thank you. And yeah, I have not had a chance to look. I'm not an EKS expert, but definitely try to look. And again, open invitation for folks on the call. You do not have to be someone with merge rights to review. So if you're interested in that feature, please take a look and leave comments, ask questions. That would be super helpful. Okay, jumping over to Julio, you have a few things that you're looking for.
Yeah, and let me say that I'd be glad to help with the release team if as soon as possible. I think I probably need permissions and some help, but I do have the time, so that would be my pleasure. And I did test my PR for dedicated host on AWS, and that works. I mean, it's provisions correctly. However, I'm a bit stuck with testing. So first, I'm not sure if I should add a unit test or if it even makes sense, because it's just two new attributes to JSON and passing that to instances. So I don't know what could be the unit test there. And I could not get the E3 tests to pass. Two of them failed, and totally unrelated to my work. So I was thinking first if they must pass, so I get to merge, or if that's normal or okay for them not to pass, and which one could I use as a base to write my own. That's what I get related to dedicated hosts. If anybody would have comment on that.
So I will say these linting failures should be fixed for sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll fix that. That's easy.
Yeah, and then the verify. Yeah, that's simple. That's just putting an emoji at the front of the title. In terms of E to E's, yes, we would like as many of those as possible to run. I think this needs an OK to test, doesn't it? No? Okay, I don't know why. Oh, it's because it's work in progress. Yeah, so these two should be fairly easy to fix. In terms of adding stuff on as a basis for the test, I would say this does look fairly simple, but since we have conditionals in here, that would be helpful to have unit tests that cover the conditionals and do what we expect. So yeah, if the host ID is not nil, that we make sure we get the placement out. In terms of you want to use a basis, Richard, do you have any suggestions here?
It's going to be an interesting test because I guess as part of the test we need to pre-provision do we have to pre-provision something in AWS first? So we're going to have to write some, I guess, before suite stuff specifically for
and
this.
And release afterwards.
Yeah. So that will be interesting. But I think ultimately we could just use pretty much one of the simplest templates and just change it and just add the host IDs, probably without cluster class. But I can point you to one of those if you want. I'll put it onto the PR.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think the hardest part will be that just crafting the actual test to do that initial setup and then do the teardown. But it shouldn't be too difficult. We just had a before and after. And what else? We just need to check that, I guess, on any failures. So if the actual test fails and the after doesn't get executed, the AWS janitor is also doing any cleanup necessary in the account that's being used. So we might just have to depending on what you have to add as the initial setup in the environment, we may just have to let AWS janitor as well. But I can comment on the PR with that.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's, I'm just now learning about Ginkgo testing and E3 testing in general. So if you can point me to anything I can use as a base to reference and copy from, that would be very useful. And I guess that's for the dedicated hosts part. For the quick start review, we have a lot of these release links in the docs that I think they work in the class API repo, but they won't work on our repo. I think we don't have that tag defined or something like that. It generates 000 as version. So I was thinking just replacing that for variables, and would like to ask if anybody would have any reason for not doing that. I mean, is there any other use for these release link tags instead of just simple variables?
That I don't know. It's probably something if we would have to steal from an upstream repo, whether it's Cappy or a Kubernetes tool that does the release link. I'm fine with doing variables though. If that moves it forward for now, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah. Seems simple. I'll update the PR. Should
Okay.
not use this release link, but I don't think it does anything other than saying OS architecture version, which is set anyway as environment variables in the doc. So I'll move the PR that way. And for the DevBox improvements, I found out that the tilt package on Nix doesn't work, so I added that on the dev container side instead. And the VS Code extension needs kubectl to be installed already, so that's why it's on the dev box and on the dev container side and not on the dev box. And I'll add more information about that in the PR. Hopefully that can be merged soon. And lastly, I added this code, but I have not a clear idea of how the entire thing works. I saw some videos about Cluster API, but nothing code-oriented or like a code or walkthrough or more of a in-depth demo or guide. So I was wondering if there is such a thing, or if we should build it. I mean, something in the lines of, hey, this is how this code works, the flow of interaction between the provider and Cluster API and Kubernetes, something on those lines. Does it make sense?
I'm gonna skip the line here. Yeah, I absolutely think that does make sense. I do know there is information in the core cluster API docs about getting started and developing on core and creating providers. In terms of working on the Kappa code specifically, I don't think we have anything that does like a walkthrough of the code or explanations of the code. I'm certainly not opposed to that. I think that's something that would be high value for the maintainers to add for other people to come in and do stuff. But yeah, at the moment, I don't think it exists. Richard?
No worries. I can work on that.
Yeah, as you say, many years ago, we did a couple of videos in different areas where we talked through various parts of, or some of the parts of Kappa and things like testing and stuff like that. They're probably well out of date now. We do have a very old issue where we talked about creating a architecture MD, that would give a high level intro to the repo and the patterns used and things like that. But no one's ever got around to doing it. So yeah, I'd be a big plus one to having something like this that is very targeted at new contributors. I can ping you the link of the issue.
Cool.
Gotcha. Yeah. Damiano.
Yeah, there is also I think on the Cappy book, there are links to many videos from core Cappy maintainers that walk through Cappy internals, which yeah, I think it's the same thing that Alex was also talking about. Oh yeah, Alex, you posted the link to it. Yes. So
Thanks, yeah. I watched many of those, but they're more like feature specific. I'm thinking something more like code oriented for new contributors.
I thought there were like, oh yeah, the cluster API deep dives. Those should be, um, oh no, those are conference talks. Never mind.
And that's it for me. Thank you very much. I think see you next.
Cool. Thank you. And one more, I'll just quickly add one more thing that could be helpful in doing this is capturing like Julio or anyone else listening to this, if you have questions about some code, capturing that in an issue or somewhere and saying, hey, I was confused about this. Uh, that is prime content for something like this. So instead of giving answers on Slack or here, we can try to get that into a document, even if it's tiny changes at a time, that can add up.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, Theo, you have updated Kappa with the conditions v2 paused.
Hello. Yeah, thanks, Nolan. Hi everyone, I'm Theo. Um, yeah, so I've just merged this change, which is updating uh, most of the controllers to set a pause condition in line with the upstream contract change. The reason why I'm bringing this up here is there are two that don't have a conditions, um, what am I looking for, field in the status. So they're going to need an API change alongside. So please take a look. I'm not too sure what the process for API changes is, hence this. Uh,
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I think so. Kind of tying this back to the discussion we had about feature gates. I think this is having this condition change is a good reason to not remove the EKS feature gate just yet. Specifically talking to Richard, you mentioned possibly removing it in the PR for controller sets. Um, this gives us a little bit more wiggle room to add this condition, I think. Um, and then also Mohammed, your reviewer and the subject matter expert on Rosa. So if you could take a look at this, especially in regards to the Rosa types, that
Yeah,
would
sure,
be
no
appreciated.
problem. Yeah, thank you, CEO, for the effort.
Richard.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, the fields, the conditions field is optional, isn't it? And it's in the status. So actually, we don't need to wait for an API version change or anything like that. So we can actually just add it in a new release. It doesn't. We don't have to wait for any bumps or anything like that. So we could do that. Probably won't have in this release, but maybe in the next release. It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Is I'm sorry, I have not been keeping up with the paused condition proposal in detail. Is it still optional? I thought the contract changed now with these conditions.
Ah, sorry. I thought the comment was that not everything has conditions on there.
yeah, no, I think it's the conditions sub resource in the status is optional, so it shouldn't be breaking. Was
Oh,
that
okay. I
printed?
see. Yep. Yep. Gotcha. Okay, I misunderstood. Sorry. Damiano.
Yeah, on this topic. So the previous PR that just merged changes this for like all the resources minus the two ones that are there. So if we don't think it's a big effort to do this change in the API, meaning it's just an addition to the condition field, which is optional and so is not a breaking change, and we can happily do it. I think it would be good to merge this in sequence quickly after the one that already merged, because it's actually then a full feature rather than a half-baked one, considering that the previous one touched n-2 and this one touches the remaining two. So if folks are happy with the approach, I would try and merge it before we release, so then we have everything up to speed.
Okay. Yeah, I'm +1 to that. I can make some time to review this today or tomorrow. And Theo just refreshed it to answer one of my questions, which was, do we need the util additions in this PR too? But that's probably because you were based on the other PR. Yep. Yeah, you just said just rebased. One more thing I'm gonna bring up with regards to this, Theo, you had questions about there were tests that reconciled exactly once, and you were having some issues with them because, as I think Richard and I looked at, like this condition changed meant that we actually the expectation was now that we would have to reconcile twice for this patch to go through. Did you resolve that satisfactorily, or do we need to add eventuallys to all of those calls in the tests?
For the unit tests, what I've done is update the status at the creation of whatever CR is being reconciled to already have the status condition,
Okay.
so we don't hit the code path where there's a change. Um, I did have some thoughts. I don't think it should matter for integration tests, but I think we had a chat about this. I don't think it should introduce flakes, but I'm not 100% because I don't know how those are written. But I imagine if they're written with the eventually and then behavior, we shouldn't. But if they're written in the same mindset of reconcile once and then immediately observed, there may be issues. That being said, I didn't see any failures, so I think we're fine.
Gotcha.
But I've too in depth.
Most of the ETEs are eventually, because they assume you're going to be creating stuff in env test and running controllers and eventually consistent. Um, so yeah, the unit tests I think were rightfully broken because the behavior changed a little bit, but you've since updated the units to take that into consideration. So okay, I think we're good. Okay, so yeah, please take a look at this PR 5394 and provide feedback. And then lastly, last two, these I'll try to keep these pretty short. Richard, you're asking about postponing the meeting on April 31st.
Yeah, it's just historically on the week of KubeCon, if our meeting falls on that, we've historically postponed it. It's not actually KubeCon on the Monday; it's just Cloud Native Rejects. So, do we cancel like we normally do, or do we not really? And if anyone's going to KubeCon and wants to meet up, it'll be good to have a little Kappa get together.
I will not be there. And also, do you mean 31st March?
I do.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like Theo will be there. I am +1 to postponing the 31st because of KubeCon. I think that happens across the community, so I am fine with that. And I'll update the agenda with that so we know. Okay. Damiano, release party?
Yeah. Should we set out a day this week where we can do the release and yeah, just jump on a call and do it together?
Yes, we should. Um, who would like to take setting that up?
I can do it.
You can do that. Okay. Thank you.
When should we do it?
Sorry. Um, I would like earlier in the week but I know I'm probably, I think most folks here are in Europe or European adjacent time zones. So late my day on Tuesday or Wednesday would be too late for folks. How does tomorrow sound, or is that too soon?
Yeah, or Wednesday,
Okay.
just to be safe.
Wednesday afternoon for you
Yeah,
guys?
Wednesday, my afternoon, so European afternoon,
Yeah.
your morning, Nolan.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Julio, do you wanna join so you can be around for this?
Yes, please. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, anytime or something.
Okay. Rachel, will you be there or are you busy for other things? You don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, I can be there.
Okay. Okay. So maybe we can take notes on some of the manual pain points of the current process and maybe like look already out for automating it all. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool. And a minute over, but I saw Jaswant, you joined and had a PR that you'd like some attention to. Um, so yeah,
Hi, Nolan,
yeah,
Richard, and team. Sorry I'm late.
no worries.
Got stopped in a meeting. So this is the flag to support that Bootstrap self-managed add-ons flag for EKS. This is to skip AWS installing the default CNI and other networking plugins when you provision the EKS cluster. We did review this PR a couple of weeks ago, and the CI was failing, then fell off the radar. I did manage to get the CI tests working now,
Okay.
but I had to update the test cases to set Bootstrap flag to true or false, depending on the use case. So it's passing CI now. I just like another set of reviews, see if we can get this merged before release.
Okay. I can certainly take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're 2 minutes past the hour, so I go ahead and wrap this up and get it posted to YouTube. Thank you everyone for your participation, and look out for Damiano, will you post the a link for the release party on the Slack channel?
Yeah, I invited the folks that expressed interest. So
Okay.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thanks
See
everybody.
you all.
thank
Bye.